What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is your Earthmaster here on the live stream with an update video on this beautiful Tuesday evening, January 25th, 2022, about 6 p.m. California time here, West Coast out here, where we're shaking a little bit out on the North American plate side. The latest quake, though, a 2.7 in the Alaska region. Let's go ahead and check out some activity that's occurring around the globe on the flat scale model here. For the flat look, there is further activity kicking up here in the Haiti area. See movement, actually got movement here within the last hour, another 4.4 striking within this region over the last 7 days or so, or the last couple days I should say. I want to show you guys the 7 days magnitude. Seeing a pretty good swarm of earthquake activity here in the Haiti area, and of course that's kind of continuing into today. There's a lot more earthquake activity than what is on the map here. This is only 4.0 and above. The EMSC models show further 3s and whatnot, and some other 4s in there as well that the USGS not reporting on their site. But this activity here, I see a lot of stuff floating around on social media that this activity is aftershock sequences following the 7.2 that struck last year, August 14th. A pretty good 7.2 strong earthquake within this region. Definitely a major earthquake for these folks. Did enormous amount of damage, unfortunately. But this earthquake activity that's occurring within at least within the last few days here is in a separate area of this plate boundary. There's actually a fault system that runs right through here. Now you really can't see it on this map here. The USGS does not, unfortunately, does not show the faults. If you want to see specific fault systems in here, check out the I can't remember exactly what it's called, but there is a fault system that runs through here. Okay, that kind of what I'm getting at here, looking at historical earthquake activity. This is just 6.0 earthquake activity and above. Is what I clicked here on this map, and you can see along this fault system that I was kind of showing you guys there, the activity that's occurred. And there's quite a bit of large-scale movement here within this region. Seeing at least a couple 7s, right, along this plate boundary. Another one back in 2010. So the activity that we're seeing over the last couple days is outside of the 7.2 rupture zone that occurred last year in August. And the activity we're seeing over the last couple days is in a completely different area. So I do not believe that these are aftershocks from a 7.2. If anything, these are kind of like potentially could be foreshocks. So look at, here's the 7.2 where it struck along a fracture area here, along this fault system here. You can see the, what is that? Oh man, I don't even know if I should attempt to pronounce that one. But you guys see this little area right here, right? You got the meter, 679 meters for this mountain. The 7.2 here in the blue circle. And we zoom over here to the current activity. There's the 679. There's this name I don't want to even attempt. The 7.2 is over here a ways, roughly within this area right here. So we're looking at a considerable distance. Not a whole bunch, right? Maybe, what do we got here? 10, 15 miles or so within this area, maybe further. We'll say 20 miles, 25 miles or so away from the 7.2 that struck last year. It's a distance. So I can't really say this is all aftershock activity from last year's 7.2. It's just out of place. It's a ways away from the 7.2 epicenter area, and it's not even having any aftershocks around there. So I just don't believe it. I believe we're looking at further back building of pressure here within this region in an area that we haven't really seen too much earthquake activity kick up here. Notice this gap of lack of activity here along this fault system. Almost seems every other section of it has had at least a 6.0 magnitude earthquake. When I did the update video a couple days ago, there's some 5s within this area and a couple 5s over here, but nothing within this area right here. So this is kind of what I'm getting at when I say this is, I think, a little bit separate activity and some backbuilding of some earthquake potential here in this region. right? Kind of got to fill in the blanks here, and that's kind of what it's looking like. But we'll see exactly how this progresses. All I know is activity is still continuing today in this region, not over here where the 7.2 is, but a little bit further back on this fault system. That's man, I really would like to set up a whiteboard program on the computer so I can draw here on the screen. If any there's any super computer tech people out there, send me an email at earthmastermail@gmail.com and let me know what the best programs are to to draw on the screen. I've tried a couple here on my end, and it's just it's not good. I can't get it the way I want it to, so I just want a simple program where I can draw on this map here and erase it when I want to kind of point out what I'm trying to talk about instead of using the arrow back and forth, making some of you folks dizzy. earthmastermail@gmail.com, the computer folks there. So what else we got going on here? Over the last 7 days, a lot of movement up around the Puerto Rico Trench and the Puerto Rico area. Of course, prior to the movement here in the Haiti area, we've seen some buildup and deep earthquake activity here on the eastern side of the Dominican Republic area. But still got to watch this region pretty closely here, folks. 4.4 earthquake within the last hour, and there's much more. Let's go ahead and check out the EMSC models. And you guys can see here, we'll zoom in just a little bit to this region of Haiti down here. You can see quite a few threes kicking up here, and this is just within the last hour or so. These guys only showing here on the map a bunch of fours, but they're listed on the map. You can see the Haiti area, quite a few threes kicking up within this area, 3.2, 3.8. A bunch, either way, a bunch more activity than what's being reported by the USGS, obviously, in this area. So that's why I'm still kind of watching this region of Haiti pretty closely. Remember the blanks. Remember, we got to fill in those blanks of earthquake activity along a certain fault system out there. Can't remember the name of it, but it's missing. It's missing earthquake activity, and we could be looking at that right now. 2.0, latest quake out there in California, it looks like as well. A little bit of movement up and down the Middle America Trench. Quite a few threes kicking up here, and also within the last hour, a 3.2 in that region. Let's go ahead and back out and go to the USGS map. Not a whole lot of activity showing up here because of that threshold with a 4.0 level here from the USGS, but there is activity here occurring along the Middle America Trench and off the coast of Panama with that 4.0. Further up here along the west coast, some activity. Look at that one right there next to Sacramento, it looks like, just south of Sacramento. I haven't seen too much earthquake activity here at all. Around Elk Grove, looks like Interstate 5 and Highway 99 there, getting in on some activity. Specific fault systems, there's a Great Valley Fault, thrust fault, that runs up along the west side of the valley. Far as specific activity here, or the fault systems in this region, it's hard to say. It's still underneath an automatic status, which means it has not been reviewed. But if you look at the Did You Feel It reports, there's definitely some folks reported feeling the earthquake activity that occurred around the Sacramento area. Looks like Rockland and Ione area, a couple people reported feeling that earthquake. That still has not been reviewed. It's underneath a automatic preliminary data system right now. Also 1.9 in the Bay Area, looks like within the last hour. We'll see if these guys, if the seismologists and the professionals here update this or not. But either way, looks like a couple of folks did report feeling that earthquake there outside of Sacramento. Down along the eastern crest of the Sierra Nevada, some movement around the Long Valley supervolcano, and it looks like some, looks like right in there as well. Some microquakes right outside of Lake Crowley. Probably slaughtered that one. Either way, Long Valley supervolcano here within this little area, and you can see a little bit more detailed here at the in this on this map, and some at the south of Mammoth Lakes region, the little independent earthquake swarm in that area as well. The depths of these earthquakes all over the place, some shallow, some deep within that area. Also, movement continues in Nevada. Activity around the Tonopah region, Candelaria Hills, this little west to east fracture zone that popped not last year but the year before with a 6-pointer. Still seeing that separate swarming of activity up here north of the Candelaria Hills in its own little fashion. I'm sure there's some fault systems out here. They're unnamed fault systems. But of course, wherever you got mountains and valleys and whatnot, right, tend to create faults. We have faults out there. But so far, just a bunch of microquakes that has been popping off here over the last few days. Looking at the total tally of earthquake activity, and you can kind of see it there a little bit. 83 earthquakes, and most of these have been just ones and twos and other microquakes. I don't know if we've had a main quake or not. It looks like a 4.3 was mixed in there. That's just a lot of aftershock activity from a 4.3. But if you look at the depth on these earthquakes as well, they're all over the place. Yeah, all over. 0 to 10 kilometers for the majority of those quakes in Nevada. Looking at the rest of the area down south, Ridgecrest region, seeing some movement as well. Nothing significant. Couple twos. Garlock fault structure down here. This major player and possible future large quakes is kind of quiet. I don't see a whole lot of movement on it right now. Just a 0.8 near Tehachapi, or just outside Tehachapi, and a query blast in that region. The San Andreas fault system here up and down the board looks pretty quiet. There is one little microquake right smack dab on the area right now. Looks like a 0.8 near Parkfield. The southern section looks pretty quiet. Some movement around the San Jacinto fault area, including a 0.6 at the northern end of the San Jacinto fault zone. Elsinore fault system showing some movement as well, but overall just a typical day along a major plate boundary. Off the coast here, Los Angeles, Santa Monica area, seeing some movement out here in the ocean. A couple mid-twos kicking off here, pretty shallow depths there in the this little underwater basin or underwater area. Looks like the San Pedro Channel region. Not for sure if they got these marked or not, but a little bit of activity occurring off the coast there of Los Angeles. Up north, movement in the Petrolia area. Some activity at 2.7 occurring earlier this morning. The Oregon and the Cascades area showing pretty quiet movement. Let's go ahead and check out the tremor map while we're on top of the Pacific Northwest. Back into the quiet zone. Not the twilight zone, but the quiet zone. Maybe it is the twilight zone, because it's awfully quiet here along this major subduction zone now. A lot of people asking if this is good or bad news. You know, I don't think it's good news because, it's hard to say, right? Because if you have tremor, if you have a massive amount of tremor, we're continuing to build up stress along the locked area, if you will, of the Cascadia subduction zone. But what happens if we're just maxed out, locked? Not only at the locked area, but potentially down at the slippage area. You know, so either way you look at it, it's a 50-50 coin toss on good or bad. And all I know is we're entering into a pretty lengthy period of very quiet activity in the Cascadia subduction zone when it comes to tremor. Intermountain West region, seeing a little bit of activity stretching up into Utah, around Cedar, Utah, and the Idaho area, Sawtooth Fault System, some movement as well in that region. The Yellowstone map shows, well, pretty quiet conditions for the most part. A little bit further activity here in the borehole area, the eastern part of the Yellowstone caldera. You can see a couple localized earthquakes right here. If we go back to the map, you can see an individualized earthquake activity over here at the northwest corner of the park. I'm not for sure what that is. Let's see if it's showing up on any other graphs. I don't really see it. It could maybe be some geyser activity. It looks like maybe kind of showing up on some of these other seismograph stations here, but this looks pretty amplified. This station here looks like it's cranked up enormously, and there could be some geyser activity kicking up within that region that is picking up also on just barely on some of these other stations here. But earthquake activity very minimal, but there is some. You can see it showing up here on Maple Creek. Localized earthquake activity in the blue. Even if they're blue, these are still localized earthquakes. These are just registered here on the seismograph as an individualized quake. Localized USGS, somewhat, I think they're reporting some of them. Let's go back to the all magnitudes here and zoom into Yellowstone, and I take that back. They're not really reporting too many of them. They only have 2 of them here on the map, and they look older. So some of the activity not being reported there on the Yellowstone stations. on the Yellowstone or on the USGS map. Southern Plains, Midwest, Eastern Coast looks pretty quiet, folks. Not a whole lot going on throughout the region. The Earthquakes Canada map, we'll go ahead and check out those folks up there. And looks about the same as we did last night. Maybe a little bit of earthquake activity over here around Quebec in the red circle. See that earthquake right there, a little small quake, 2.1. And also, let's see, that's about it. Some minor earthquake activity around Victoria in the red circles, very small microquakes, 1.7. And a little bit of activity up here in the Alaska region as well. The latest quake looks to be a 1.9 on the map. And other than that, not a whole lot of movement there in the Canada area. The Alaska region, some further activity up throughout the Aleutian Trench area. Looks like 4.9, the kind of a stronger one there in that region. This is the all magnitude still. Not a whole lot of movement up through the Alaska area interior. Just some microquakes and a little swarm of movement up here around Denali. That's pretty impressive. We'll have to watch that pretty closely. Some deeper earthquake activity up here, circling this beautiful area of Alaska. Seen that a couple years ago when I went up there in the middle of December. It was awesome. It was cold and it was pretty dark. Although we got to see a couple hours of sunlight, it was beautiful nonetheless. I love Alaska up there. South America getting in on a little bit of activity since the update began, a 4.3 in the Argentina region, a little bit further south on the Pruchili Trench. This earthquake right here, 121 kilometers for the depth there into the subduction zone. The majority of these earthquakes pretty deep within this region. This one 107. This one's got to be pretty shallow, right smack dab on the Pruchili Trench upstream though. On the locked area it looks like 4.4 at 10 kilometers. And some further movement once again around the Tonga area and down through the Kermadec Trench. Some deeper activity kicking up here around Tonga. A lot of stuff going on down here. And 150 kilometers for that 5.3 that kicked up there. Further movement along the New Zealand area as well. Let's go ahead and check out the EMSC model. Let's go ahead and bring this back here real quick. Stand by for a second. EMSC. These guys have been slow. I keep saying that, but then again. Okay, zoom in here to the Pacific area. We can see on the map here a little bit of further activity. Let's go ahead and bring this down. Never mind. I didn't want to go down too far. Zoom in to the New Zealand area and check out some of that activity. You can see a 3.0 down there a little bit earlier this morning kicking off, and some further activity up through the Kermadec Trench. And of course, all the activity around Tonga. Fiji has been relatively quiet here. We haven't seen any deep movement here in a couple days in the Fiji area. Normally we see a pretty good blast earthquake activity in the deep 500 to 600 kilometer range in this area, but it's been it almost seems like it hasn't kicked up since the Hunga Tonga volcano had the large eruption a few days ago there, over a week ago now I believe. So kind of odd, some odd activity occurring there. Philippine Plate pretty quiet up through Japan, and the watch area remains awfully quiet within that region. Check out the solar weather activity kicking up, or lack of. Looks like a little bit of threshold going up into the M category, possibly pretty close. Upper C class flare kicking up there earlier today. 50% chance of a C flare, 10% chance of M flare. It's a little bit of a uptick in the solar flare threat. No coronal holes facing us. Sunspot activity looking, like I say, there's a couple spots here facing us, and a little bit of activity on the far side that will be rotating into the Earth view soon. But overall, just a little bit. Not a whole lot of sunspot activity kicking up at the moment on the Earth side of the sun. All right, folks, have a great day. Live stream is back up and running. It went down suspiciously when I left my house for about an hour or so earlier. Still don't know what's going on, but either way, did some updates on the computer, some driver updates and whatnot, and some security updates. So we'll see if that helps out and makes it make the live stream last for a little bit longer. We'll see. All right, guys, have a good night. Stay safe out there, and we will chat you a little bit later on. Peace out.